Hey y'all, Andrew here with Free Tours by Foot New Orleans, and today I am here to take y'all on a cocktail tour of the French Quarter. I'm actually going to be taking this tour with you. A few of my colleagues, four of my friends, are going to be joining us to show us around the neighborhood and pick a few of their favorite bars, their favorite drinks, their favorite stories to share with us. So if you're thinking about a visit to the neighborhood, this will be a few highlights out of the zillion bars in the quarter that you could choose to hit up, and a few drinks that have a lot of story behind them. So we highly recommend coming checking out these places in person. We also offer an in-person cocktail tour, and this is going to be largely bars that are not included in that. So you should come and check it out with us to find a few more. So thank you all for tuning in. Let's turn it over to the pals. Sean, you are one of our resident cocktail experts, and you have chosen a classic to introduce us with. What you got?
Well, right here we have the French 75. Now, this cocktail is kind of interesting because it's associated with New Orleans, but does not originate from this city. It originates from Paris in the early 20th century. It gets adopted by New Orleans because until about the 1920s, New Orleans is always trying to follow whatever the popular trend is in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
This was invented during the First World War in a place called the New York Bar. And it is champagne, gin, sugar, lemon juice, lemon peel.
Mm-hmm.
Champagne cocktails at this time are all the rage. And so is putting sugar in your cocktails because sugar has actually become cheap. Where it gets its name from is fascinating. Because it's champagne and gin and it sneaks up on you, because, they got the sweetness here that masks it, but it's got a decent amount of alcohol in there. They said it was as strong as a French 75 millimeter rapid fire cannon. This is the most violent cocktail name I know of.
Which is like, to me when I first heard it, it sounds, when you associate it with, like, I think the glass and the color, it seems like it's going to be kind of a dainty meaning, and it is anything but.
No.
And when you talk about like the experience of this, of what like tasting it is like, it's got an edge of delicacy because people associate champagne with certain things, but it kicks too.
Yeah.
And do you get these kind of everywhere you go, or do you recommend this place in particular for them?
I recommend this place. There's several bars that do these very well. Of course, this is where Bailey's here. This is one of the absolute best cocktail bars in the entire city, and anything they make here is going to be great.
And May Bailey's, what's kind of the backstory here? We're talking about a historic drink and a very historic venue.
Oh, very much so. Like this room that we're in right here, which is the room that it's attached to, was the home of the painter John James Audubon. The room that's over there in the background was a location that was a brothel, owned by, of course, May Bailey, who was an Irishwoman who owned as a brothel before the Civil War, and they have a copy of the certificate for her when she paid her fines.
We had a semi-legal red light district, fines as the kind of way of keeping things on the theoretical side of the law.
All I can say is Mayor Waldman had a great signature.
And so, I mean, it really is, it's an incredibly French Quarter thing to name a bar after the brothel owner who once owned the space, even though you also have the famous painter of birds. They didn't name this John James Audubon's bar, they named it May Bailey's bar.
Yeah, and also keeping in mind too, the room we're in, his room, is not the main bar area. This is just where the, kind of nice quiet spot to go up and have a drink.
That's right, we're in the sedate part of the building.
Exactly. Most of the action is going to be going on over that way, of course. Historically and today as well.
We're talking about what kind of night out if you're coming here.
This is a great bar to go to before you're going to dinner. So say you're going to, I don't know, Arnaud's, G.W. Finn's, Galatoire's, any of the great restaurants in the French Quarter.
Classic upscale local cuisine.
So you're doing anything in this area. This is a good place to get a pre-dinner fine cocktail.
I don't think people think of the Quarter as necessarily offering a chill atmosphere as like a first most expected thing, but I feel that here.
Well, that's also a thing too. People don't realize, most of the French Quarter is residential, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are a variety of bars right here. Now, a lot of these are going to be more like, dive bars, hole in the walls. But there are a variety of bars, including some excellent cocktail bars that have more of the chill atmosphere. They're just going to be away from bourbon.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're going to bourbon for a chill atmosphere, you made a big mistake.
Sure. You don't have to go far from it, though, to get away from the intensity.
That's what's crazy about bourbon, though. You go one block off Bourbon and you're on Royal, and it's just like antique shops and art galleries, right?
100%.
Next block is what? Dauphines pretty chill overall.
Yeah.
And, that's what we're on
Which
right
is
now.
where we are now.
Yeah. So no, this is like one of your. This is definitely one of the hidden gems. It's absolutely one of the best cocktail bars around. I do try to make sure just that every tour comes here.
Nice. And you give Free Tours by Foot's cocktail tours. The experience that we're going to be offering in this video is 5 different guides at 5 different venues, which is not going to overlap much with what you do in person, but you like to bring people here.
Oh, yeah.
What else do you like to make sure happens on an in-person cocktail tour? What about an in-person cocktail tour is really like the reason to do it?
I think the reason to do it is, in my case in particular, because a lot of these cocktail guides, they're going to bring you to really famous old New Orleans bars in a lot of cases. And what I found with a lot of those is you pay a lot of money, and you have some very grouchy bartenders. Okay? Which I don't blame them. All right, I do not blame them for that. But what I'm looking for is a place that has got good space, good bartenders, and also I live in the French Quarter, so I want to go to a place that I actually would go to myself to get a good drink.
So, apart from finding you on a cocktail tour, what other kind of tours are people likely to find you doing here in person?
Oh, what other tours? Yeah. Just about, I'm mostly Garden District right now, some French Quarter, and, do other, I used to do a crime tour, Civil War tours. I do just about anything but Ghost.
So if people are particularly interested in the combination of liquor, crime, and war, that's kind of your lane.
Hey, look, mostly liquor. Look, people have these things. Look, let's be honest, man. People have these things in New Orleans, like they're into the music scene. I'm like, all right, I know some stuff. I'm no expert, all right, but I know food and drink. Okay, that is my expertise. That's the part of New Orleans I'm really invested in. But even with music, like I make sure to know, like, hey, where are some good venues? Also check them out occasionally to be like, hey, is this place still legit?
Yeah.
Because of course a common question is gonna be like, hey, where should I listen to jazz music? I'm like, okay, well, let's go through X, Y, and Z and see if we can get you.
It is one of the things that is almost like the internet is almost always a year or two behind on what are the best things to do here now. And I think I have a lot of admiration for anyone who keeps up with what's good right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Actually, yeah, point of pride with me. I want to give you the good recommendation.
Yeah, so cocktail tour taken in person, y'all. You'd be exploring much more with Sean, or also Sean's brother Daniel, who has been on the channel before. You can find him showing us around St. Louis. September 3 cemeteries and liquor in that particular case. And and we'll also be introducing some of the other guides with the company who specialize in other subject matter. So. Yo, we have arrived at Napoleon House in the company of my colleague Mary. Hi, Mary.
Hello.
Appearing on camera for the first time, but we have some deep expertise here. I'm excited for the angle you're coming at this from, because you know this stuff from the other side of the bar.
Yes, I do.
Tell us about your bartending career.
Well, I've worked in a lot of really not high-end bars, and I've worked in a couple that had craft cocktails. But this is the one that I've probably made the most out of. I have made maybe 100,000 Pepsi cups, so many Pepsi cups, because that's all people wanted for a long time.
Yeah, man. It's so kind of light and citrus forward, and I know you don't even have cucumber juice in it, but it just makes my brain go to cucumber.
Yeah. And I think you can actually smell it off the top as you're drinking it, and that's the point of it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's cold, it's refreshing, it's delicious.
It's a specialty a lot of places.
It really is, it is. And everybody has their own variation. It's not always the same set recipe.
So, for people who don't know a Pim's Cup, pitch us on it. Why is it a drink that you'd want to get while you were in New Orleans?
Well, you're probably going to be a little hungover in the morning, and When it's hot, a Bloody Mary is a lot to drink. And this is light. It's crisp. It's not going to overload you first thing in the morning, but it's still going to give you that little bit of the hair of the dog kind of a situation.
I think it's probably hydrating, right?
It is.
Not something you can say about a terrible lot
no, not at
of
all.
alcoholic drinks.
Not at all. I would say it's probably on par with like a seltzer nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're here while the sun is out.
Yes.
I think for somebody maybe who's new to day drinking, like these are mild enough that you're not going to feel sloshed after one of these.
No.
You might feel just sort of free.
It is only liqueur. There is no actual liquor in it, so it is not very high in alcohol content.
Yeah. So tell us about the
You
rest
could
of
drink
it.
like 3 of them and be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Challenge accepted. But this is a classic place to get one of them.
They originated the New Orleans version of the Pimm's Cup.
Yeah, so let's take that one step at a time. It's not from New Orleans originally.
No, it's not. It's from
so tell us
London.
about Pimm's.
Pimm's actually was created by James Pimm, Pimm, in London, and he made a whole series of these liqueurs. There was number 1 to 6, and there was all different kinds of liquors. The Pimm's number 1 is the only one that survived, and it is the gin-based one. And he actually originally created it to be like a tonic, to be a digestive, and he was selling them simply. I think it was just Pimm's and soda probably originally.
That's a lot of cocktail history, y'all, is that a lot of it is medicinal early on, because like
starts as a tonic.
In the measuring of pain and suffering, people look like they felt better afterwards.
Yeah.
So go next door to the pharmacy museum before or after you get a drink over here, and you'll appreciate the health-related benefits.
Yeah.
And then the New Orleans introduction of it. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, Pimm's created Pimm's number 1 in 1840s. It wasn't until 1940s that the owner of Napoleon House at that time created this variation for New Orleans. So he added the 7-Up and the cucumber and the lemonade. So that's why I think it was probably originally just soda and Pimm's.
All very refreshing.
Yes, all delicious.
And
all of them, yeah.
And we should say Napoleon House, where we are right now, we're in the courtyard, but this is one of these like upper end of the French Quarter institutions. Depending on where you look, there's a sign that says since 1798, which I think like a tiny chunk of the building is from 1798.
Yeah.
Most of it's from like 1814, and then the business is from I think like 1917. So it's been around a long time, but it was this little Italian grocery store when we were a mostly Sicilian neighborhood, and you had, the way I've heard the legend is like one of the owners, as it was kind of turning into a restaurant, didn't want his customers to be rowdy, so favored something kind of light that would just get people what they wanted, keep them calm.
That actually makes perfect sense. It really does.
So good place for like a muffaletta slash muffalata, depending on how you say it.
Yeah,
slash
it's my
a lot of
favorite
other
place to get a
classics.
muffalata.
It's your number 1?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's my favorite place to get a muffalata because they do it hot. They melt the cheese, which I need.
You gotta like olives an awful lot to get the cold ones.
Must like olive.
Nice. And for a normal day, when you are not stepping in and doing us the favor of telling us about a cocktail, what is it that you do with the company? Where might people encounter you?
I do the ghost tour, and it's at night. The sun is down.
I don't think I've ever seen Mary in the daytime before. This is a revolutionary moment.
Yeah. You can see me in the sun.
So, ghost tour, obviously quite a different thing, but like
Absolutely.
spirits, there's overlap, right? People come drinking on it. Do you find yourself talking about cocktails or drinks
Yes,
on
I
ghost
do.
tours?
I do. I do tell them where to go. The second oldest bar in the country is Gina Lee's Blacksmith Shop. That's really a good place. It's worth going to. You can tell as soon as you go in there, it's very, very old.
Yeah. Yeah, so you would really end up being like expert on anything and everything, and I'm sure the history as a bartender, both the knowledge and the disciplinarian portion of it probably come in very, very handy.
Absolutely.
But for some great ghost stories, y'all, and plenty of insight besides, and native New Orleanian cred.
Yep. Born
which
and raised.
Not everybody out here on the street can say. Definitely Mary is somebody to go looking for. I think that would be in really great hands. So.
Yeah, I feel like we got some good stuff.
Y'all, so happy to reintroduce my colleague and pal Kayla. Some of y'all may have seen Kayla before. Kayla took us on a tour of some classic New Orleans foods, and if y'all haven't seen that already, that would be well worth checking out. And you picked a real classic cocktail
I
for
did.
this time around. Yeah,
I
tell us
did.
about this. What we got?
My choice is the Sazerac cocktail.
Classic as it gets.
Classic as it gets. This is the official cocktail of the city of New Orleans.
This was like
as
an
a-
act of
Yes.
the state
The
legislature.
state legislature used the people's time to give us an official cocktail. But it's got great story, and it is so tied in with the history of New Orleans that it has earned its name as the official cocktail.
And talking about its name, besides official cocktail, so like, okay, well, there's a long process to how the drink develops, but I guess let's start with like, what is Sazerac? Where does the name come from?
Okay, so the name of the drink comes from the Sazerac et Fils company, which was a French cognac maker. They've been around since the 18th century, but in 19th century New Orleans, a local apothecary enjoyed Sazerac et Fils cognac so much that he used it in his most famous little drink that he would make for his friends and patrons at his apothecary shop.
Which becomes like a Sazerac cocktail because there's Sazerac
Yes.
in it,
Right.
and the drink just becomes, the spirit just becomes the name.
Eventually, yes. So Antoine Peychaud starts his apothecary shop on Royal Street in 1834, I think. And as we move through the mid-19th century, there are some bartenders who, a series of them, sort of adapt Sazerac et Fils brandy as their brand of liquor that they are going to distribute and serve in their establishments. And so that gave rise to the Sazerac House bar, right? And of course, they sell the Sazerac drink that Peychaud develops in his apothecary shop. And over time, you know, the two sort of merge kind of into one thing. The Sazerac company is the successor to Sazerac et Fils, and they branded the Sazerac and bottled it as the first branded bottled cocktail in the United States.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, so pre-mixed. Whereas this
Yes.
is very much like, this is a thing you get someone to make.
Oh, yes,
At
yes.
this point, this is a very like craft bar kind of cocktail.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
And definitely we should get into those places, but let's answer maybe the itchiest question: what's it made out of?
Okay.
And notably, we do not have cognac.
We
in
do not
the
have
one that we're
cognac
drinking, so
in the one
that's
that we're
a-
drinking.
So the recipe has changed.
The recipe has changed. So it starts out with Sazerac et Fils cognac as the main alcohol for the drink, and Peychaud's bitters. So Antoine Peychaud is also known for developing a famous bitters that cocktail aficionados will know as Peychaud's bitters, which is a very famous bitters used in many cocktails all over the world today.
With an ill-fitting label.
With an fitting label. So also now owned by the Sazerac company, by the way. They own a lot. So anyway, he starts out with cognac, but in the late 19th century, there's a phylloxera epidemic that hits vineyards in France, and suddenly there's no cognac, there's no brandy, and New Orleans bartenders just start substituting rye whiskey instead of cognac. And so that's how the drink has developed, and that is what the drink is essentially made of today. Some Sazerac rye whiskey, a little bit of Peychaud's bitters. At some point, somebody starts adding some absinthe to it, which once absinthe is banned is now herb saint, sugar cube, very important part, and a little bit of lemon. So it's this shift from cognac to rye whiskey because of this pesky little pestilence that affects vineyards all across France. And but you can still, now that you know this, ask your bartender if they can make you a Sazerac with cognac. And if they have cognac behind the bar, they'll totally make you. And then you can experience Sazerac's cocktail in its original
Yeah, your connoisseurs love it both ways, or you know, maybe have a preference for one versus the other. That alone, I think, bespeaks some connoisseurship. And it is very, very spirit forward, we should say. So, like, compared to some cocktails where, like, the spirit might be kind of disguised, this is like the spirit with some flavor added in.
100%. And it does have a sugar cube in the drink, but it's definitely not that sort of sweet, I can't taste the liquor in this, I'm going to get a sugar rush so hot that I'm not going to know I'm drunk. And then it's going to go really bad and downhill from
This
that
is
point.
a sipping drink. Not to say people don't drink 3 to 5 of these at a meal.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
it is a lovely sipper. So this is Peychaud's on Toulouse in the French Quarter. It is part of the Maison de Ville Hotel, and the bar is located in what was Antoine Peychaud's townhome. So he had an apothecary shop on Royal Street, and he lived just around the corner on Toulouse, and this is where he lived.
Yeah, and like cool little tiny spot, beautiful little courtyard. James, what you got?
I don't have anything to drink.
Another New Orleans classic.
There's a brand.
So this is a great place, a recent addition to the bar landscape,
Yes.
and seems like a really, really excellent one. We also have so another place that folks have known for getting Sazerac's either version for quite a while has been the Sazerac bar, which is just outside of the quarter in the Roosevelt Hotel. So that's another one, really storied place as well.
Yes.
But then we also, as of pretty recently, we have the Sazerac House
Yes.
in town as well.
Yes.
And that's like bar / museum, kind of.
Kind of. It's the headquarters of Sazerac Company, which has returned to New Orleans to this house. A beautiful renovation of a historic building on Canal Street. It is a distillery, so they're actually distilling the Sazerac rye at this location, and it's a beautiful museum to cocktail history and cocktail culture in New Orleans. It is one of the best museums, the most beautifully curated experiences that I have been to. It's phenomenal. It's a must-do when you're in New Orleans. Take a tour at the Sazerac House Museum. It's fantastic.
You know, getting it from
And you
an
get free
expert.
booze. You get to like drink.
So also that. It is just outside of the French Quarter, so easy to pair with the other things we talked
Yeah.
about. Make a whole day of Sazerac itinerary from
Yeah.
beginning to end,
Yeah.
and you can find this on any of like the classic restaurant menus as well. So
Absolutely.
all over the place. Nice. When people come and actually meet you in person, you're not leading our cocktail tours, but you probably get into this subject matter pretty regularly. Tell us about the tours that you do.
Yeah, so I do a food tour, and I sometimes do a French Quarter tour. I don't specifically talk about cocktails very much on either of my tours, but you are always welcome to ask questions, and people often do, and that sometimes leads to the best conversations and the best sort of content. It's not necessarily planned, but when people are curious about things and they ask questions, then it kind of gives a new life to the tour. So
Obviously, there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of eagerness in there just waiting to be asked for. So
Please
y'all
ask
come
me
and
all
ask
things.
those questions. Nice. Thanks so much, Kayla.
thank you. This is a joy. It's fun to be back with you guys. So thanks for having me again.
Really happy you came and did this.
Cheers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got a man who needs no introduction, but we'll get one anyway. This is Matthew, and you brought us to a classy joint. That was a place that it would be like for the mixologically minded to have a night out.
Yes.
Tell
you
us
wanna
about
spend some money on your drink. It's a place to go. So yeah, we got these drinks from a place called Canan Table. It's one of the higher end cocktail bars in the French Quarter. Very nice, great vibes. It's got kind of this very like Caribbean inspired, a lot of rum based drinks, a lot of tropical fruits, tropical flavors is kind of what they're skewing towards.
Yeah, it's kind of different for them having like a specialty to that degree, and they're also the people behind Cure Bar Uptown that's
Yes.
based on like medicinal mixes from back in the day. So kind of cocktail history is these people's kind of nerd bucket.
Yeah.
These guys kicked off with like a concept of like proto tiki, which was like tropical drinks, but in the vein of like what people during the American Revolution would have been drinking, and like pre-American Revolution, a really like historical concept. So you could really like and see these people wanting to get back into history whenever they can, even if they're also meeting the public where they are, because this is the rum drink everybody knows to expect.
Yeah, so this is the Canan Table.
Which is a variation, of course, on
The Hurricane.
classic New Orleans cocktail.
Yeah. So there are a couple drinks, I think, in New Orleans that are named for their destructive potential. These include, of course, the Hurricane, also the hand grenade, and the shark attack, French 75. And the Hurricane is one of the better tasting of the bunch. Like a hand grenade is just there to destroy you. Hurricane is there to destroy you, but in the most pleasant way possible.
I really love the touch of the inside-out umbrellas too.
Yes.
Speaking of destructive potential,
Hurricane.
nice detail. How would you describe the makeup of this?
So, from my understanding, a Hurricane is mostly rum, but it tastes almost exactly like fruit juice. So it is a very deceptively alcoholic drink. This is a drink that is popularly associated with at O'Brien's, which is a very popular bar right off of Bourbon Street, where they have the dueling pianos, and Hurricanes are one of their signature cocktails. It was actually invented at this place back when it was still a speakeasy, way back in the day. And so they're kind of the ones who made the drink what it is. In terms of the flavors you're gonna get, if you go to Pado's, you're gonna get a drink that really gets you drunk. And if you go to Canan Table, you're gonna get a drink that tastes very nice.
Yeah, this is really lovely. The size of this feels just right. We didn't get it in the classy original containers, but it's a great thing for a to-go option on a warm evening. And as far as fitting Canan Table into an itinerary, what kind of night are we imagining?
Ooh. Well, they also have food at Canan Table.
Yeah,
so it's a place where
sure.
you can go, you can get some dinner. I feel like it's a good early evening place.
Yeah.
Get the night started and then kind of slum it afterward.
And it's in a corridor that's a little divey, but has a mixed bag of other things, and it's kind of on the way to Frenchmen. So something that you could easily tie into an evening of music, even though it's not itself a music destination.
Exactly.
So you don't typically give cocktail tours, but folks who have watched the channel before might remember you from giving a tour we had a lot of fun with about rarer traditional New Orleans foods. So what is it that you do typically? How might people run into you if they're coming here for a visit?
Yeah, here in town for a tour, I give various history tours in the Garden French Quarter and so on. I also give the food tour, which, while not a cocktail tour specifically, those things are kind of inextricably associated. And so I ended up talking about cocktails a lot on the food tour when people ask about them. And so that's one of the main tours that I give on the weekends.
Nice. Yeah, so when y'all are in town, try out the culinary tour as well as the cocktail tour. Get to know a few of these faces in person. Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the drink.
Y'all, thanks so much for joining us for this cocktail tour through the French Quarter. Again, these are all places in the neighborhood that you could visit. And again, we do an in-person cocktail tour along with lots of other pay what you will guided tours through the neighborhood. Check below for a link for how to find those, as well as for how to support the channel and the team. Thank y'all so much, and cheers. See you again soon.